Let's go, girls. Come on.
From New York City to Los Angeles, Powered Up with Beck and Franklin is giving women of all ages permission to live the life they've always dreamed of. Why live in black and white when you can choose the brilliance of 3D and Technicolor? Each week, Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin and their high-powered guests will be here to cheer you on, to share their challenges, their successes, and what they've learned along the way. It's all about women supporting women. The stories and practical tips on sex, beauty, money, and so much more are designed to help you reconnect to the powerful woman you are. Fabulous knows no limits. Now it's time for you to expand your boundaries. Here are Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin.
Man, I feel like a woman.
This is Powered Up Talk Radio with Sandra Beck, and today we are going to welcome Polly Monson, and we are putting together a multi-part series on fitness, health, nutrition, workouts, mindfulness, balance, goals, all the things that we need to talk about, the whole package for getting ourselves in shape and talking about fitness, because fitness is much more than just fitting into a pair of jeans. You know, we've all heard the term skinny fat. You know, I have a friend who's skinny fat, and she's so skinny and she looks great in her clothes, but the minute we go hiking, she can make it 2 steps up the hill, and then I have to drag her skinny body up the hill, which is a great workout for me, but it's not what we want in this world. And we want to show up being fit and happy and healthy, because when we are truly fit, we are radiant. And truly fit is not about, like I said, fitting into a size of jeans, even though that does feel good. I have my fat pants, and we all do, but the whole package. And my intent for these series of shows with Polly Monson of Central Sweat is to shed some light on what we all think, because on the break, Polly and I were talking about a little bit about shame and vulnerability and how we feel when we are struggling, especially with fitness or weight loss or body image, all those things. And she said to me, many of my clients think I'm the only one. And Polly, I want to open with that because I think that is so powerful.
Oh, of course. Yes, I was complimenting on Sandra on the fact that I love that you're so open about your situation and your history, and because one of the biggest things I deal with my clients is to get them out of the mindset that they're the only ones dealing with these issues. And like I said, Sandra, I was like, it's not a selfish thing. It's not that their ego is so big that they think they're the only one that has to deal. It's truly about just feeling isolated, feeling vulnerable, feeling embarrassed or ashamed about these things that they can't do or these goals that they can't conquer. And like I've said in a previous segment, that's why support system, whether that's coming from your trainer, whether that's coming from your family or your friends, is, I think, one of the biggest predictors of how well or how successful you're going to be in achieving your goals. Because you're certainly not alone. I can't imagine at this point, with my 8 years experience and 100 people that I've seen, that I can hear something that somebody says that I haven't heard from somebody else. Maybe the root cause is a little different because everybody has a very original, unique life and past, but the goal itself, the problem that they're having or what they need to achieve, tons of people deal with on a day-to-day basis, whether it's getting stronger, whether it's losing weight, whether it's just feeling better about themselves, lowering their correct cholesterol, reducing stress, balancing their everyday life. It's a lot, and it's the same issue that everyone has to deal with. This doesn't come easy for anyone. Trainers weren't even born doing push-ups out of the womb. We had to learn this stuff too, just like everybody else. We just get paid to do it. And so everybody else kind of has to juggle it along with other things. And so, but that's where we come in to try to make that part easier for you as well. But, so that's I think the biggest thing I think for people to really understand is that we have a ton of empathy. There's a ton of empathy out there for these issues, because everyone's fighting the same war. Everyone's fighting the same battle here.
That's it. And I love that you put that everyone's fighting the same battle because, we're both single. I've been married, and I'm just going to say this, breakups suck. I don't care how nice your divorce is. I don't care how bad your breakup is or how good your breakup is. They all affect you. And I can tell you, from caring for my terminally ill mother, that affected me. And then, during this process, I lost my home. I had a foreclosure, and I kept my main home, thankfully, and I was able to keep that stable, but I lost my cars, I lost the lifestyle that I had been accustomed to because loss, the change is part of life. And the funny thing is, Polly, everything we see in the media is resisting change. Like, I looked at Beyonce the other day, and she is so beautiful, and, she is getting younger as she gets older. I look at some of my Beverly Hills friends, and I'm aging and they're not. I feel like I'm in some weird time warp. It's like, how are you now younger than me? That is not possible. You used to be 10 years older than me, and now you are younger than me. But we do fight change, and change is painful, change is difficult, change can be invigorating, but our bodies do change as we age. And I can tell you, when I was in my 20s, I could go on a serious bender, okay, eat like 2 apples a day and a head of lettuce, work out like a fiend, and then get up the next morning, and I really truly did this. I danced a 24-hour dance marathon with no practice. I ran a 10K because somebody, when people would drop out, I'd be like, sure, I can do it, because that was my mindset in my 20s was, what more can I do? What more does life have to offer? And after I ran my 10K with no training, my older sister actually had to help me sit up in bed because I couldn't sit up. And then my other one was like, okay, we'll help you go to the bathroom, But I will tell you, like 2 days later, I was fine. But now in my 40s, I ran I ran a 5K or something like that for breast cancer at Dodger Stadium last year. And I trained for a couple months, and, it's only a 5K, but I will tell you, it took a lot. I drank a lot of watermelon juice to try to help my recovery. But I noticed that my recovery time has gotten longer as I get older. So, we do change despite all the creams and spanks and, everything we can do for our bodies. And my skin sags in places that it's not fat sag. It's just, the body bag's getting older, and I'm really not ready to go under the knife. I don't know if I ever will. I'm not a big knife person,
No,
other than slicing my fingers when I chop my vegetables. But change is part of life, and everybody has to face that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, like you talked about, well, a myriad of emotions run through my head and thoughts as you're talking about this. And you're right. I think first of all that, the downside to aging is, yes, around like your late 20s, early 30s, your body kind of starts to work against you rather than for you. Whereas in your 20s, like you said, you could bounce back pretty quickly, eat an entire buffet and then go to bed and wake up and have lost 3 pounds. Like, you just never know what rhyme or reason to anything, but it happens. And then you start getting late 20s, early 30s, and you start to naturally and gradually lose lean muscle mass. And that lean muscle mass, basically your muscle, is what helps keep your metabolism up and what your body has intact pretty securely in your 20s. And then when you start to lose that is when everything else kind of slowly, it's like a domino effect, starts to go downhill. And you have to work a little harder for things. Now, I think the positive note to aging is you get the wisdom. Like, as you're getting older, you're getting wiser in your choices. You're getting more secure, or you should be at least, hopefully, getting more secure into who you are, what you like, what you don't like. Hopefully maybe more money to where you have more access to cooking and more options. I find like some of my more fitter clients are in their 30s rather than their 20s. 20s, everyone's sporadic and they're just kind of lucky and they don't really understand the rhyme or reason to why they're so thin, but they're just thin and that's great and we're going with it. But they're not really learning anything. Whereas my clients in their 30s and 40s and 50s are actually taking the time to figure out how to get what they need, because it's not automatic anymore, but they figure out the food that they need to eat to give them the energy that they need and to keep their waistline slim. And they figure out the activity levels they need to keep their body fit and to keep them sleeping well at night. And that's more important than anything, because they'll be able to sustain that, whereas the 20 somethings don't. The 20 somethings eventually fall off the wagon, and either you jump back on and you get, right again, or you try to stop the process with knives and creams and spanks and things like that. And then eventually, I think by your 40s or 50s, you just start to look confused. Like you're somebody that's supposed to look 45, but your face looks like you're 25. And not many people that I just don't you find that interesting that, like, I never hear anybody, like, when you see someone with plastic surgery where that they've had plastic surgery, no one finds that great. Like, no one says, oh, that's like, I don't, like, it's never a sort of a positive thought, or they never get, like, maybe they're getting compliments from other people that I haven't met, but those obvious, like, plastic surgery, I mean, mostly all I hear is the inner beauty, and then men and other people really appreciating, like actresses who age gracefully. That's what they call it, aging gracefully, like, who look amazing and confident and radiant. And it has nothing to do about how many wrinkles they have in their face. It's just the fact that they match their age, and they're beautiful for that, because there's a confidence that goes with that, which I think, like I said in a previous segment, people who go to the gym, just spending an hour there, they walk out like they've lost 5 pounds. They haven't lost anything, but they have gained the confidence because they put themselves through a good workout. They feel good. Their endorphins are going. Their self-esteem is up. So already they're more attractive, and just by doing that.
Well, I think what you're talking about, and we can get a little airy-fairy because, we can go anywhere on these shows, but I think what you're talking about, what I see is that we are energetic beings. We are energetic beings that communicate and relate to each other in a way that's so far removed from our physical bodies. And so when our energetic being feels good, like, our physical bodies respond to that, because I always believe that, like, it's the spirit first. Like, if you're in tune with your spirit and you've got your things going on, your mind then will follow appropriately, and then where your mind goes, your body goes. But I will tell you, I agree with you. I live in the plastic surgery capital of the world in Los Angeles, and there are women, I swear to God, that walk around town and their face could repel a cheetah bite. It is so tight. It is pulled back. It looks completely unnatural, and they look like that Russian girl that's trying to be a Barbie doll. And yeah, they may photograph well, but you know what? That's what Photoshop's for. Photoshop will knock off a few wrinkles here or there, a couple extra pounds, but they look weird, and they don't feel good, and that's the thing. I've had girlfriends, and I will tell you, okay, I have my own boobs, but most of my girlfriends don't. And I used to be executive director of the Breast Institute, and I watched a lot of botched boob jobs. And I will tell you that I watched a lot of women come in with poor self-esteem because one was big, one was small, these were down to her knees, they were non-existent, come out with a beautiful pair of breasts, and they blossomed. They really did. And I'm not an advocate for breast enhancement surgery. I'm not an advocate for plastic surgery. But there are some times when you need to fix something that's broken on you or you don't like. Like, if you don't like your nose, you got to look at your nose every day. I have tons of friends who have had nose jobs. And, they feel better. But there's a balance between the physical and the spiritual. And when you talk about that 5 pounds lighter, you're talking about the energy that person gives off. They physically couldn't lose, 5 pounds. Well, that's not true. I dated a professional hockey player, and I made him weigh himself. This is me. He had to weigh himself before a game because he's like, God, I'm so dehydrated. God, I'm so worn out, and he played. He played for the Dallas Stars, and he would lose like 7 or 8 pounds playing a hockey game. But the rest of us are not professional hockey players. So when you walk out of the gym and feel 5 pounds lighter, it's all about that energy.
Yes, I agree. And one of the, it makes me think of my motto. So on my emails, when I write clients for my Central Sweat, our logo is, there are no absolutes or guarantees in the health and wellness industry, just the idea that everyone has the potential to become their ideal self. And ideal self is kind of the key term there, because it's not about comparing yourself to anyone else. It's about what's your ideal. So like you said, the women that get the breast implants that feel better about themselves, and maybe that's what they version their ideal self to be, no harm, no foul, and they're happier, great, more power to them. And maybe someone with size A breasts who love their small breasts and that's their ideal self, then more power to them. I can say on a personal note, and I'm not sure if we'd talked about this previously, but I was in a hit and run accident 2 years ago. I was hit by a drunk driver while crossing the street, and he hit me head on at like 55 miles an hour. And I died, came back. It was very dramatic, but I crushed one whole side of my face in. And I had an amazing plastic surgeon, which just by luck, because he happened to be on call at the hospital that day. And he put some metal in my face, kind of put it all back together. But I do have some scarring left over from that, that I've had now for about 3 years. And it's different. And it was a big deal for me. And it's not something that I let define me, but it was a definite defining moment in my life because, and I would hear from friends and family when they found out about the wreck, and obviously like their sympathies, but they were like, oh no, her face. Oh no, her face. Because I'm cute. I know I walk around a pretty cute person on a general basis. And you don't realize how much you kind of rely on that, or rely just aesthetically on what you look like, particularly, until that's kind of gone. And now I had this permanent scarring that I felt was the first thing people saw. And I wasn't my ideal self anymore, and I couldn't be that anymore. And I went through a really low point in my life past that with my self-esteem because I didn't know how to cope. And it took a long time, took a lot of therapy, but at the end of it, how I live now are these scars, which are barely visible. Everyone who talks, like, unless the sun gets really bad, like, you can really kind of barely see them. But I see them, and I know they're there. But they've become a symbol of strength for me as opposed to a symbol of an imperfection of me. But I had to get to that place, and I think a lot of people need to get that for themselves, and whatever that may mean, whether it's your body type, whether you're pear-shaped, apple-shaped, or you feel like your nose is too big, or your forehead's too long, or like there are certain things about you that you have to kind of just come to terms with and understand that there's beauty, and beauty is never defined in a certain way. And sometimes I think that I'm more beautiful now than I was before with the scars on my face, just because I have a better understanding, and I'm not as superficial as I was, even though I wasn't very superficial before, but you know what I mean? Like everyone has their thing, and this was my thing. And, it wasn't age that got me. It was literally a car that basically forced me to accept change pretty quickly, and be okay with it, which I am. But, and that's, again, what I try to get to a lot of my clients on is what's the root of their insecurities? Where are their insecurities? Are these insecurities fixable in terms of, could you lose the weight? And some things that aren't, like, I guess you could get a nose job, but is that really, do you need that? You could be Barbara Streisand, who owns it because she wouldn't have been the talent that she was if she had fixed it. So
that's true.
You just never know. I don't know.
That's true. I'm going to call you Robo Trainer from now on, because when you told me that story, I thought of like Terminator, and I'm like, ooh, she just like came back and like Robo Trainer. But I think that what you talk about is the miracle of really getting in touch with yourself and owning yourself and making the decision of, what can I change? What can I accept, what choices do I really have? And, is it worth the fight? Like, my kids, when they're unhappy, I always tell them, like, look, you have a couple choices here. You can change it, you can accept it, or you can ignore it and it'll give you a tummy ache. So, that's kind of life, and you had a choice. You could, if you can't change it, if you don't have the finances, the emotional investment in wanting to change it, that's one thing. If you can't change it because it's a physical thing, like I have a scar from a tumor I had when I was 13, as if you're not ugly enough at 13, like pimply faced and hormones. I've got one, they took out my thyroid, and so it went from collarbone to collarbone, and when I came back to school, kids were like, oh, what happened? Because it was big, angry thing. And, my mom was like, well, you have a choice. You're going to have to live with this scar, because we were from modest means. We didn't have plastic surgery. And even though the plastic surgeon did a good job making it straight in the fold of my neck where my necklaces are, it's still there. So, it took me a while, but then I just started telling people I had a head transplant. And see their faces? Yeah, I didn't like my old head, so I had a head transplant. You have a choice. And if you can't change it, if you make it part of you, and you laugh about it or you own it, like you talked about, you may not like it. Like, I don't like my scar in certain dresses, but you know what? I don't like it enough to have to go another surgery to have it whatever, because, it's not going to go away. And so I had to make peace with it in my 20s. And, and it's funny because the stuff that matters to us changes over time. And that's the one thing that when I think about really permanent things like extensive plastic surgery, you change over time. And what's important to you when you're 20 is so less important to you when you're 40. And I don't know what it's like to be 50 or 60, but I can tell you from my wise, girlfriends that you can't ever go wrong from eating right and keeping your body healthy. I just don't think that, like when we talk about like what does a healthy lifestyle look like, I think a healthy lifestyle looks like, hey, if you look in the mirror and you don't like something, there's a couple options there, and just make sure that it's the best decision for you, because sometimes those best decisions for me at the time don't prove to be the best decisions over time.
Yes, agreed. And you kind of have to, and to really keep in mind that this isn't just affecting you. Like, you making the decision to ignore trying to build a healthy lifestyle for yourself, or taking the time and making the effort, or donating the money, or whatever you're doing to doing this, will eventually not just affect you, but affect everyone around you. Like, it will affect how you are in your day-to-day life. Like, what's your self-esteem level? What's your level of crankiness? What's your patience level? Like, how well do you get along with people? Like, the more confident and secure you are, the more positive you're going to be, and the better relationships and communication you're going to have with others. And it's a domino effect. Now, you come first, but you coming first will make everything else easier. It just will. Eating better makes, like, there's so many things that people think are automatics. Like, my clients will be like, well, I just get so tired in the afternoon. I was like, well, that's probably because you're eating a lot of sugar in your lunch and you're crashing mid-afternoon. Or there's little things that people don't realize, that it's not just because you're 40. It's not just because you're 50 and things get slower. You don't just gain weight because you're older. Those things don't have to happen if you don't want them to. But you do have to take the time and the effort to say, I don't like this. I want to change this. How can I do that? And then we swoop in like, robo trainer, and we tell you how to, the best way to do it.
Well, and it's funny, we talk about nutrition, because I hear all the time, well, I've got extra weight because I'm a mom, and, I don't have time to eat right. And, people have called me the food Nazi, to be fair, because I will go into people's kitchens and I will say, oh, are you really going to feed that to your kid? Or, oh, are you really gonna? And, the argument that I get a lot of times is the moms will tell me, you know what, I'm on a diet. I'm so tired of making a separate meal for myself, or my husband won't eat that, or my kids won't eat that. And I look at them and I go, oh, the hell with them. If you are cooking, they have to eat it. And why would you make a separate healthy meal for yourself and an unhealthy meal for your children and your husband? And the third thing I hit them with, which is why they call me the food Nazi, because I usually make people cry at this point. What are you teaching your kids? If you're feeding them, like, I get so mad at the school districts because everything's fried, everything's fatty, everything's salty, everything's loaded with sugar and preservatives. And, then they wonder why, the kids in my kids' fourth grade, the girls are developing breasts in third grade and everybody's fat. I get so upset about that. But the fact of the matter is if the kitchen is the heart of the home, why are you filling your home with fat, sugar, and cholesterol? And why are you teaching your children that this is healthy, this is the lifestyle, and then when you go on a diet, you eat some crazy restrictive thing, and so the kids learn all this stuff. And I found, through trial and error, Polly, is that with nutrition in my family, it starts with me. And you know what? My kids, as creepy as it sounds, they will eat cupcakes without frosting because the sugar makes them sick. They will choose bananas and apples and fruits because it tastes better, because I haven't butchered their taste buds by saturating them with tons of food. And, you know, you're right. I don't know how they're going to grow up, but the fact of the matter is what I put in my mouth is what they put in their mouth. And together we're going to be healthy as a family, and it doesn't cost more, and it doesn't take a lot of time. Those are all urban myths.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yes, you're singing my song. It's like a quick. Oh, it's great. No, it's everything. It's everything I ever advise. I think you're absolutely right. You need to practice what you preach, and it doesn't need to be a separate thing. Like, there's so many articles out there now that's like, there's no more dieting. Dieting doesn't work. Da da da. Like, and it's true. Like, I'm never on a diet. I don't consider myself dieting. Sometimes I'll tell my clients that I've placed myself on restriction, which means that maybe I'm not, you know, making sure this weekend I don't drink because I need to make sure this happens, or just like fiddling with it a little here and there. But overall, how I eat day to day is how I love and how I want to eat. And people with kids fascinate me because, well, one thing, I actually had this conversation with my client today because he said, I wish I would have been told when I was little to not clean my plate. Like, or that, like that old adage was like, you know, make sure that you clean everything on your plate because there's hungry children in India and they're starving, so eat everything. But it's actually like counterproductive because what you're basically saying is don't read your body. Who cares if you're full? Just make sure everything's eaten, which again, portion size is one of the biggest things we have to overcome when it comes to healthy eating, because everyone eats too much of everything. I mean, basically the only thing that you pretty much can get away with is vegetables in the long run, but who wants to eat like a whole thing of broccoli? No one really has that issue. It's usually the box of donuts, the huge bowl of cereal. So that's one thing that I think parents especially need to watch out for is saying that, like, letting your kids think about what they're eating, why they're eating it, eat when they're hungry, don't eat when they're not hungry, don't force food down them. I mean, do it when they're wanting dessert. Well, you can't have dessert until you have this. But, you know, always keeping in mind that, like, I love this. You ever seen those commercials where you are what you eat? So the kid's, like, running around, he's a French fry, like, on the soccer field or something.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I love that. I love that. And you know what's funny to me, too, and I don't know if you have this experience with your girlfriends when they're pregnant, because when women are pregnant, they'll get very restrictive. They'll be very like, I'm gluten, lactose, everything free, no booze, no caffeine, no everything. They're like diligent to, like, because whatever they're putting in their body, they know is going to their baby. But for some reason, once you pop the kid out, you throw them like the little bag of Cheetos, or you throw them the little Debbie cakes, or like at that point, it doesn't really matter. I get confused because I'm like, it's still the same principle. Like what you're giving them, you want just hands down with nutrition, I say just stay away from processed as much as you can, which is probably what you're yelling at a lot of your mom friends about. But the prepackaged anything, just no good. I mean, if you think about all the chemicals and when you read the labels, like what's actually going in there to preserve the food and make it taste better is horrifying, like sometimes. And you're actually, you know, putting that in their bodies every single day, and they'll take whatever because they love everything, and they'll eat tons of whatever they want to eat. You know, they don't know. It's your job to kind of show them. Oh, we're done.
Okay, yep, I got to take us to commercial break. I'm here with Polly Monson of Central Sweat. When we come back, we're going to dispel a whole bunch of mommy myths, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. So come back after the break.
We've got lots more Powered Up with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin after these messages.
This is for all you girls about 42. Tossing pennies into the fountain of youth.
Join us for Healing with the Marika Method. This is an amazingly informative show to help heal people as well as their horses, dogs, and cats. This show inspires and empowers people to take charge of their own health and their animals' health using the power of diet, nutrition, natural medicines, and lifestyle to heal a variety of health problems. Learn how food impacts all physical and emotional health conditions and how diet and natural medicines are used to heal the body, mind, and spirit. Marika is a health and nutrition specialist, homeopathic practitioner, a gifted medical intuitive and healer, and an author and educator with over 2 decades of experience in clinical practice for people and their pets. Join our host, Marika Vandewater, every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on the Rockstar Radio Network.
Are you looking for something more in your life or business? More success, more stability, more happiness? It's all out there waiting for you, but it doesn't just happen. You've got to go get it. Make it happen with Michelle McCullough, where motivation and strategy intersect. Michelle is a serial entrepreneur, acclaimed speaker, and the Woohoo Radio Network's resident business and success strategist. Michelle has the smarts, strategies, and experience to help you improve your life and take your business to the next level. You've got big dreams. You've got big vision. Now it's time for you to make it happen.
We're back with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin. Here's more Powered Up with Beck and Franklin.
This is for all you girls about 40.
This is Powered Up Talk Radio with Sandra Beck, and today we are welcoming Polly Monson, and this is part of our Health and Fitness Summer Series that we are running. And this is so great, you guys, because you're getting so much information from a very successful trainer who gets it. You know, she's out of New York City, so if you're listening from around the world, or you're listening, you know, like me, I was from a little small town, so I'd always live on what, you know, like the big city people knew, because in some respects they knew a lot more than I did in a lot of respects, just by nature of the awareness levels and the things that they were exposed to. But Polly Monson is educated, she's successful, she walks the walk, she talks the talk, she lives her fitness from the inside out, which is really important for me. And you can find more about her at centralsweat.com. But we have been dispelling some of these mommy myths, because I'm not a mommy expert. I've just been called a mommy expert on the radio. And what makes me, I think, the best mommy expert is that I'm raising my kids on my own, and every morning I get up and go, why am I doing this? Why are we doing this? What is going on here? I'm a big one to know that success leaves clues. When healthy kids grow up to be healthy adults, it's no mystery when successful people raise kids and their kids have a successful life, which means happy marriages, long-term marriages, you know, positive career choices where people love their jobs. People are doing something right out there, and I'm the first one to ask why. And I think, you know, when my marriage blew up and my life blew up, I had to really have like a come to Jesus with my education level, because yeah, I have a high-powered Ivy League education. Well, guess what? I'm divorced, I'm broke, I have kids, and my body is sick. And I think about that guy, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead guy, that documentary guy, who had all these things, but he didn't have his health. And I really am a big believer in success leaves clues, and I don't want to raise my kids with unhealthy eating habits. I don't want to have them myself. And so we're talking about nutrition today, and we're dispelling some of the mommy myths, and I want to identify 2 of them right off the bat. You know, we talked about the clean your plate thing in the earlier segment, and for those of you that missed this part of the show, go ahead and pick us up on iTunes, type in Polly Monson under Powered Up Talk Radio, and you'll pick up all our shows together, because we do have a series of health and fitness out there. But Polly, that clean your plate thing caused me a lot of consternation, and it caused me a lot of sleepless nights for 2 reasons. One, I agree on a principle level that teaching your kid to clean your plate doesn't create good eating habits. And I agree that teaching your kids to eat when they're hungry is a good theory and principle. However, I'm going to buzz in here, because when you get your kid home from school and they had lunch at 11:30 and it's 3:15 and they need to be to soccer practice at 3:30, you better eat that banana, because if you don't, Polly, I promise you, my lovely, delightful Niles and Fraser-like children will turn into Godzilla and Tyrannosaurus Rex at 5:15 because their blood sugar is through the floor. And my little guy, the one, Mr. 23,000 Steps, he would rather do anything other than eat. And it has been this way since he was a toddler and spitting out foods. And it's funny because he's my little vegetarian. He'd rather have carrots, and he loves cucumbers with salt. He loves, celery. He will eat a whole bowl of broccoli and get a tummy ache because he has broccoli farts. And he says, Mom, the fart got stuck. So when they're little like that, it is really hard. And, somebody told me once, just keep a tally during the day, like how much your non-eater doesn't eat. My older one is very, very good. He was always a good eater, and he actually will tell me I'm full, and I'll look and see, okay, well, you're full, and we're not a big dessert people. We have fruit for dessert, or, every once in a while, maybe a couple of times a month, we might have an ice cream cone or a piece of pumpkin pie, something like that. We're not, we don't eat a lot of junk like that. I just don't put it in the house because it's a lot easier. There's no more fighting. You can't fight over what's not there. But trying to figure out what's going to keep your kids' blood sugar level when they'd rather be running and swimming and playing, and then they come in and their tummy's growling and they are growling like a bear at you or crying and having a meltdown. I haven't figured out the balance there then other than keeping track and laying down the law saying, all right, if you're going to play soccer for the next hour and a half, you're going to eat this banana and you're going to drink this bottle of water before you go. And I haven't figured out, how do you balance that between I'm not hungry, well, you better eat, and then you have your school schedule where the kids can't eat when they're hungry. They have to eat from 11 o'clock to 11:20, and if they don't finish their food like my little one is, he's starving at 1 and too bad for you. And they don't learn. It's not like they wake up one day and go, oh, I better eat my lunch because I will be grumpy at 11:30. No, he's just having a meltdown and beat another kid.
Yeah, I can see how that could be a conundrum. I definitely see that. I would think, I think the biggest thing you would try to do is just the why. And honestly, Sandra, you're right. At the end of the day, mom knows best, and sometimes you just have to lay down the law. But when you're laying down the law, just, even if they don't understand, just say why. So if you're giving them the banana, and like you said, we'll go back to the other segment when you were talking about brainwashing and brainwashing your children. Out of context, this sounds really bad right now, but what you were saying is you teach them these little inner monologues or thoughts to have always, positive affirmation and things every single day for them to feel good about themselves. Same thing with food. So if you give your child that banana, you can say, I need you to eat this banana, else you're not going to have enough energy to play soccer, else you're going to run slower than the other kids. I need you to have this. This is like your gasoline. I need you to gas up and go out. Kind of speak their language. Find something they have, if they're really into Ninja Turtles or Transformers, Transformers, they eat their bananas before they go stomp on the town. So you need to make sure to get that banana in you because kids are too young to have that emotional level of I'm really sad, so I need to eat, or I'm really happy and celebratory, so I want to drink. They don't think of food in that term. They just think hungry or not, or there's a lot of other things that are more exciting right now that I could be doing than eating whatever you're putting in front of me. So all you have to do is just say, well, you're going to have to do it, but maybe put it in terms of something they can relate to and will make them want to eat it because it's going to fuel them for something else. And then they'll start to have that mindset. It's when you just kind of say, okay, clean your plate with no explanation of why they need to do it besides they just have to do it, that kids kind of lose the point of it. And that's when it becomes detrimental because in the long term, all they're thinking is clean their plate. They're not thinking why. Whereas if you're giving them the why, which which is because you need to feel good. This is going to make you happy. These are carbs. This is it's just like learning anything else. There's a science behind it and say, this is going to make your body feel great. This is fruit. Call the fruit candy. You want some candy? Here's some fruit. Because fruit, essentially, there's sugar. It'll get them quick energy fast. It's sweet. It's good. They have that inner monologue. Like you said, they're going to reach for the fruit because that's going to be okay, I'm feeling low, I'm feeling tired, let me grab a banana. And they're going to know that because mom said this gives me energy and this is what my go-to was, if that makes sense. So I think you have to, I don't know.
Well, yeah, and I love that. I love that you clarified because, when we hear these like mantras or we hear these things, they're like, there's like absolutes to them. Like, don't teach your kid to clean your plate. Don't tell your kid to eat when they're not hungry. And then my brain starts, short circuiting like Brainiac, going like, but what if? How do I live by this absolute? And what you did was you explained the thinking behind the absolute, which then allowed me to go, you're right. When you're not thinking and you just make your kid eat, finish your plate, you're not really thinking about, how much they ate that day or what they ate or what's on their plate or what, even their personal likes and dislikes are. I think that helped me a lot. That clarified a big one for me because I have two food mantras that I teach my kids. One is, it doesn't always have to taste good. Food doesn't always have to taste good. There's sometimes you put food in your body, and we talk about medicine. Medicine tastes bad a lot of times. So there are some foods that are really good for your body that don't taste great. Like my kids don't like kale. And, I give them kale and I put kale in their juice and, I juice it and I, sometimes I do a kale salad and, we talk about, and, and this is funny because this works with little kids. And as you get older, they go, Mom. But I say, okay, you guys need to eat that because it's time to clean out your pooper. And they get it, because I'm like, not everything we eat has to taste good. So much of our prepackaged food, so much of our commercials, so much of what we're training our kids today, and this goes way beyond nutrition. This goes on with video games, internet technology, immediate downloads, cell phones, texting. Our kids are living in this instant society, and we are used to getting everything instantly. And I think it's really tough because nutrition isn't instant. Nutrition is medicine, but it's not a pill. And, pills work faster. Sure they do. But if you think of everything you put in your body as medicine, like my kids, a lot of times I will tell them, you are dehydrated, so your body's not working right. You need to drink this water. Sometimes I'll put lemon in it. I'll put a little salt in it, things like that to really help their body recover. We live in an area where it's not uncommon in the summer to be 100 degrees and kids are playing out in 100-degree weather. So, you have these things, but where is it written that our children have to like everything they eat? My mom was a country mom. We ate a lot of food that she prepared. We ate local. We ate the apples off our own trees. We ate the corn, out of our own backyard. And there was never a discussion on whether you liked it or not. And to be fair, I did roll my peas under the plate, stick them to the bottom, and carry them to the sink. That's the way to get out of eating peas. But where is it written that our kids must love everything we cook and that they must eat things only that they like? I think that's a really big problem.
I agree. And it's so funny because I think of my mom and when we were little and we would have to eat something that we didn't like and all she would respond to me, she's like, Polly Joe, it's just that your palate isn't sophisticated yet. Once your palate matures, you will enjoy it. So eat. That's all she would say. So we always had to have just a more mature palate, and then eventually we would appreciate what was being put in our mouth. But, I think part of what happens, because I think you're right. I think it's all in the way you kind of sell it, and you're really great at, explaining to your kids if they're having to drink the lemon salt water or whatever you're giving them is kind of anecdotal. Is that the word? Yeah.
Anecdotal.
Yes. That there's a rhyme and reason behind it, and right now it's not about the flavor. And I think you can do that in many ways. I think two things. One thing, like, so for instance, salads. Like you think about a lot of, we love our salads. A lot of times salads are so correlated with weight loss and diet and all those things. But if you grab a salad in front of your kids, and I love salads because I love salads, and I think there's a million different ways you can make salads, and salads are amazing and taste amazing. And I would just think in front of my kids, if I grab my salad, I would say, yeah, I'm just feeling really low energy. I'm feeling a little dehydrated. I need some water. Like I need some good for me nutrients, and make it sound really positive and have it nothing to do with my weight. And slowly but surely, like when you do things like that with your healthier foods, just always putting a positive spin on it rather than saying, oh, what it's going to just never associating it with weight, because I think that's when things start to become a little bit more negative. And the other thing, and sometimes the downside to parents, because kids can, like we were talking about earlier, when you're younger, you just bounce back quicker. You can inhale a whole pizza and wake up the next day and feel fine and it not really affect you. But at the end of the day, it does. And sometimes when parents, I think when you let your kids get too much into the processed food or the extreme flavors of things, like the food, like the really sugary candies and the really like salty fast food and all of that stuff, like those are all like very extreme flavors. So yeah, if you put a strawberry in front of the kid after they've had the triple chocolate fudge sundae, they're going to be like, no, like this isn't a dessert. This is healthy stuff. I don't want it. As opposed to limiting, like like maybe in that moment, yes, occasionally your kids can have a sundae. It's not like you take all of that out, but I think we don't realize how much of those like extreme flavors start to affect what they actually start to think about the healthy stuff. And that's when the healthy stuff starts to become negative and all the fast food and the junk food becomes more positive, because that's what they're used to eating at that extreme, and they're not getting enough of the subtle. But you take the extreme out and the subtle becomes extreme, and all of a sudden a strawberry is like super sweet, and that's their candy, that's their junk food. And I think it's a good way to kind of manipulate it a bit. So it's all in how you spin it. Honestly.
Well, and it's training. It's training. I went to cooking school, and I have a lot of experience with food prep, and there's foods that I may not like, but I've learned to appreciate them. And they call it training your palate in cooking school. You have to actually teach your palate, to accept different foods, because as a cook or a chef, you're not going to always just cook what you like. I'm not a big fan of salmon. I really don't enjoy it. I find it really fishy. I like lots of other fish, but salmon, I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan of the flavor of lamb, but I can cook it, I can cook it well and cook it, so that people like it. But I don't naturally like the flavor of lamb, but I can learn to appreciate it. And I think, that training of my taste buds in cooking school really taught me a lot about what are we training our kids' taste buds. Because if we eat a lot of fast food, if we eat a lot of processed food that's full of sugar, full of nitrates, full of salt and sodium, all these different things, we're training our kids to think that that's what good food tastes like.
Yep, exactly. And I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's the cooking. I mean, and again, it's not all going to be like, it takes some work. Like, I didn't truly know how to eat until I learned how to cook, because for a long time, especially in my 20s, dieting to me was chicken and broccoli, or I got to have Thai food. So it was either live great and have fun with Thai food, or diet and sacrifice with chicken and broccoli. I didn't realize there was this whole middle ground of amazing food. Now, I did with my mom, because my mom knows how to cook. She's an amazing cook. But I didn't take the time to learn anything from her. So by the time I left the house, I was kind of out of luck until I met an amazing friend in Chicago who's a chef, and taught me basically how to cook brown rice, how to fry an egg, how to make popcorn on the stove instead of in the microwave. A lot of very simple things and ideas that change the way I eat and change the way I looked at food, so I can make amazing green, healthy chilies that I look forward to at the end of the day, and salads that I eat every day and love. Like, again, I'm never sacrificing, but cooking is key. Cooking is key, and sharing as much as you can with your kids in that regard, I think, is key, because it's almost, it's not about sitting down and just teaching them or telling them. It's like you said, you practice what you preach. It's just every day. It's how you live. It's how they're watching you without you even knowing it. They're observing all the little subtleties of why you pick the food you pick, why you drink, when you sleep, when you eat, all of those things they're picking up on without you ever realizing. So it's always good to like remember that. I think you're constantly in that situation where your kids are observing and collecting all these habits. And if you have good habits, they'll have good habits. It's as simple as that. You're the number one person in their life. You're their role model. You're their inspiration. You're the person that knows, regardless of whether you actually do know or not. You're the person to them that knows. And that's as strong as gold to most kids.
Well, and it's a motivator for most moms. When I sit down, I speak to a lot of women's groups, in the scope of my career. And when I sit down and I say, girls, what you're putting in your body is what your kids are going to put in your body. And you talked about that pregnancy thing about, how so many of us, take really good care of our bodies because we're infusing that fetus or that baby with what we're taking. So you think about that from a very visceral level. Whatever I put in my body is going to go right into the baby. Well, guess what? When you're cooking food, whatever you are cooking goes right into that body. So if you look at, you're teaching your kids, you're modeling is the term. You're modeling for your kids how to eat. They're watching you. And when you give them one set of food and you eat another, guess what? You've just sent them a mixed message. So when you're modeling, you model for your family, what you should be eating. And, that's why fat parents have fat kids. Or unhealthy parents have unhealthy kids. It's not rocket science. And I want to share with you one of the fun things that my kids and I do. We make our own salad dressings. I started doing this for two reasons. One, because of a lot of the additives in salad dressings. But number two, as a single mom and, battling myself out of debt, over 5 years and paying off my ex-husband and, everything I've had to do, I have found that salad dressings at $3 or $4 a bottle with 2 active kids and the amount of salad we eat just wasn't cost effective. And I really wasn't satisfied with just vinegar and oil and, a little bit of salt and pepper. That'll do for sometimes. But we started making like our little science experiments. And my one son came up with the best one. He took a little bit of ranch powdered dressing, the kind that you're supposed to add mayonnaise and milk to and make a big, thick, fatty dressing.
Yes.
He scooped a couple of those spoonfuls into his oil and vinegar, and then he took a scoop of garlic, like just fresh chopped garlic, because we make our experiments, and then we taste them. Mm-hmm. And he made this great ranch alternative, and then sometimes he throws, instead of crumbled garlic, or he'll throw a little bit of crumbled blue cheese in there, and it'll kind of melt. And it is the cheapest, best tasting dressing you could ever buy, because you get the oil and vinegar, you get a little bit of the salty ranch, and then you get the tang of the blue cheese, and you're talking a spoonful of blue cheese, a spoonful of this little powdered dressing, and the rest is your oil, vinegar, and water. Shake that sucker up. It's delicious, and it's so good, and it's not full of preservatives. There's no sugar added, and yeah, you're adding a little bit of that chemical blue cheese or the ranch dressing thing, but when you look at sitting down and dipping your vegetables and stuff, that's sour cream and mayonnaise, it's just, there's no comparison.
No, I love that. I want that recipe. I want that dressing. That sounds awesome.
I know. You can thank my 7 and 10-year-old for coming up with it, because they were like, I'll try this, I'll try that. And it's really fun to mix, try different vinegars, mix them up. And, when the kids get involved in it and it's like a science experiment, and then we dip different vegetables in, we're like, oh, well, if you dip a green bean in there, a cooked green bean, that doesn't taste so good. But if you, put a piece of tomato in there, and we have fun. We make it, like a science experiment. We make it, and when kids get involved in that, they're more likely to eat it. And then you can learn and talk about, well, why does this taste good? Does it taste good because it's sugary? Does it taste good because it's salty? Does it taste good because it's, tastes fatty? All those things are, part of teaching us the appreciation of food rather than just stuffing a Big Mac in and watching it go down.
Exactly. I love that. I think that's a great way to do it, because there are a lot of like dedicated moms are like, dinner every night, home cooked meal. This is amazing. But what also happens with that is you're a bit like the child becomes a bit removed from the process. You just have the meal in front of you when you sit down, and it's an amazing, healthy, well-balanced meal, but it kind of came out of nowhere. So at the end of the day, the child has no like real backstory into why that food was chosen, how the food was made. So I love that you just have these like participatory time. I mean, it doesn't have to be every day, obviously, but to have those times where you make a fruit salad together and like pick the fruits that you want, make the salad dressing together. Like they're learning so much that you probably have like no comprehension of. And especially at that, and people may think they're too little, but how much, I mean, you're constantly hearing how much better information is absorbed the younger the age. So like languages are better learned when they're like 3 and 4 and 5. Like why not start then as opposed to when they're 16 and 17 and they're about to go off to college and it's like, oh, but by the way, we need to make sure you know how to cook some stuff to save some money, or, you know, make sure. No, like start young, start when they're little and when they're absorbing all this information and all of this exciting, and they'll those feelings will stay with them, I think. And I don't know, I was thinking when you're talking about the different types of moms, and another kind of demographic I've come across are the unhealthy or overweight moms that have the really thin kids because they refuse to let their kids be them. And I mean, in one way, it's like, okay, great. They're not enforcing their own bad habits onto their children. Like they're very anal about making sure that the kids stay, you know, eating clean. They're not going to, you know, don't end up like, you know, what your mom looks like. Don't end up like what your dad looks like. But at the end of the day, I just want to also say that those things aren't mutually exclusive. And yes, you're probably teaching some good eating or healthy eating habits. But like you said, you know, you eating something differently than what you're giving your kids is sending mixed messages. And at the end of the day, it could backfire because your kids think you're beautiful, like who you are, no matter what size or shape. I mean, if you have a relationship with your kids and the love and all that stuff, they're going to think you're amazing. It's why a lot of times kids, you know, end up dating or marrying who their parents look like. Like my boyfriends look like my dad, or like those are the images you're used to seeing. So your kids may understand the difference, but growing up, they may say, oh, well, my mom ended up this way, so it's okay if I end up this way because my mom was like this, so I could be like this. And my mom kind of gave up, so I could give up, and it's okay. I mean, it's normal. This is what my mom looks like, so this is what I can look like. And I think it's a good thing for moms now to keep in mind that you can teach all the lessons, but if you're not practicing them yourself, they're only going to go so far with your kids at the end of the day, I think.
Well, and I will tell you what happens in 5th and 6th, 7th grade, because, you know, my older one is that, and I hear his friends, you know, and the boys that are in his peer group. We had a Valentine's Day thing at our house, and I had 11 little boys. And one of the little boys was talking about he didn't want his mom to come, and one of the kids says, why not? And he's like, she's just so big. And he's like, I am, you know, and he said he was embarrassed. He's like, I don't want anybody to see her. She's just so big and she's so fat. And I was in the kitchen, you know, I'm a big eavesdropper with my kids. And I was listening to the kids talk about this. And, you know, these are just normal little boys. They're not, you know, all food Nazi parents. But, you know, and the one kid's like, yeah, he's like, my mom's really fat too. And he's like, all she does is sit and watch Dr. Phil all day. And he's like, I was watching her just stuffing this bowl of popcorn. And he's like, she thinks she's eating healthy and she ate the whole thing. And I was like, holy bananas. Like, these kids have it dialed in today because, you know, they're exposed to so much more through the internet, through television, through, you know, anything I've ever experienced. And they hear about weight loss and skinny celebrities. You know, it's all over the news. It's all over the media. And I want to talk, when we come back from the break, I want to talk about how parents underestimate children and some of the mommy myths that I've had to deconstruct, being a single mother of 2 little boys and soul supporting. You know, my life is very different. I can't uphold the standard of supermom. I can't do all these things. I need my 4-year-old to pick the grapes off of stems because I need the help or it's not getting done. And the byproduct is he learned how to process food. But at the end of the day, these myths that we're carrying forward need to change. And we come back from the break, we're going to talk more about some of these mommy myths.
We're so glad you joined us for Powered Up with Beck and Franklin. Sandra Beck, Los Angeles-based single mother and technology company owner, knows what it's like to be fit, funny, and fantastic in your 40s. Linda Franklin, a New Yorker with a successful marriage and prominent career, is the brains behind the Real Cougar Woman. She shares her wisdom, grace, and laugh-out-loud opinions based on her stellar successes, both in the financial world and in her personal life. Check out our website, poweredupwithbeckandfranklin.com. And join us next week for another great conversation. We're here every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, right here on Toginet.com.